All right, let's talk about OBS Studio's plugins that you can download and install into OBS Studio. This is the reason why OBS Studio is so amazing, is because you have so much versatility of things you can just create with nothing but these plugins. I do a lot of creating in Blender to make things and, have these little animations pop up, but some of them I like to integrate these OBS plugins into. So what I'm going to go over is my favorite and most used plugins. Now, before you dive into going into installing these plugins, I want you to first go check out my video that talks about OBS portable mode and how you should be backing up OBS Studio before you install plugins. And the reason for this is because there are some plugins that are going to work for a certain version of OBS Studio that aren't going to work for the one that you're working with currently. Some of them need to be updated. Some of them aren't getting updated. So you need to be able to make sure that you can uninstall them efficiently. Some plugins you don't have to worry about too much because they have an installer and an uninstaller already built into them, which is fantastic. The only way you can make sure that you can fully delete a plugin that you installed is having a backup ready to go to replace the OBS Studio you just put that plugin into. And one of the things we need to mention is installing these plugins, because they're not always the most clear directions. Sometimes it's going to be a little bit more complicated and you have to read and understand what you're reading before you can actually install them or install them properly. So when you're looking to go and install something and you go to the download, sometimes it'll pop up where you can just download the one you need. So if you're running Linux, then you can download that one. If you're running Windows, there's the Windows installer zip, which that is basically a full install and should have an uninstall to it. My preferred method, because I run OBS not on my C drive and I actually run it on a different hard drive in case my C drive should crash, I actually download the Windows zip part, and then when I open it, you're going to see folders like this where it says data and OBS plugins. When you go to OBS Studio, where you have your OBS Studio involved, you'll notice the data and OBS plugins are there. With ones that have those folders that are actually sitting there, it makes it easy to just drag and drop into the OBS Studio folder, and it will actually put the files where they need to go. A lot of times, especially with Exceldro, he'll make them very easy to install that way. Not all of them are easy to install in that manner, in which case you're really going to need to pay attention to the directions that are put together by the person who developed that plugin. So make sure you're always flipping through and reading. If you don't see install instructions, just kind of identify which folders they have in there, and that's going to make it easier for you to identify where you need to drop it in the OBS Studio folder. So sometimes you're going to hit that go download, and it's going to take you to GitHub. And when it comes to GitHub, sometimes you're going to have to look down here on showing how to do the installation, and it'll kind of go through how you should put it in. So here it shows that you would need to go to your OBS Studio folder, into the data folder, OBS plugins, and then you drop that OBS shader filter in, and it will install it in there. And to download it, you would just go to download zip, open the zip file, and click in. And here you've got the data and SRC, and you just put those into the folder as directed. It's a little bit of a pain to put these things in there sometimes, because maybe the instructions aren't exactly as clear as you would like them to be, because you're not used to doing this. This is why you make the backup of OBS Studio. This is the reason why you want to make sure you're saving everything, just in case you mess up, you can fix it easier. Now, there are so many plugins you can use, and I'm going to show you my favorite ones and what they can do. So the first one that I love to use is Move Transition, and Move Transition is just a fantastic plugin, making your stream look a little bit more professional. Even if you're just doing recordings, it can make a huge difference in production value, just being able to do a nice zoom in and out of maybe your camera or something else. Having that dynamic fluidity is just a beautiful transition to have. You don't even need then to have a stinger transition or anything like that. You can just go ahead and have a move transition and have sources move from one spot to the other. It's absolutely fantastic. But wait, there's more. Not only does it do this between different scenes, but you can actually use move source as a filter, and you can move your camera in different places just by enabling a filter and setting a duration for how long it needs to move from one place to the other. You can actually even chain these together, which I've done when I put my head on Mario and made him jump around. I also have used the move value that comes with it, and move value actually can animate things. So one of the things that I like to use this for is to animate the opacity of something and actually make it fade in by combining just a few different filters and making it all happen with the move value. This is so amazing to work with because it gives you so much depth to work with in so many different ways. The next one I want to talk about is StreamFX, and StreamFX is one of the more versatile plugins that you can download and install. What I love to use on this more than anything is the 3D transform, where I can actually take something and make it look like it's in a 3D space, much like I've done with my Winnable Wednesdays segments, where I have the Jackbox games. I built a nice, beautiful set, and you can actually see that the gameplay is angled, so that way it fits into the screen that's also at an angle. It just adds a little bit of flair, a little bit of creativity to it, and something that is just visually more appealing than just the standard 2D flat look. Another thing I like to use is the blur effect, and the blur effect actually will blur out your background, like I'm doing with this right now. This is actually, I have my green screen up, and I have a picture behind me, and I blurred it out. I use the blur just to give that little bit of depth, taking my simple Elgato face cam, and I'm just putting it in a nice way. I'm making it look a little bit better. I also use the source mirror that's built into this, and this is actually a fun feature to use because what this does is actually create an exact duplicate of a source that you can manipulate without affecting the primary source that you have. So I can use this to then duplicate my camera and make the glow effect that happens around me. I actually have my camera, then a copy of my camera, and then I added the blur filter, a color correction on it, and made it so much better to just make me stand out a little bit more. It's just something that creates that nice little effect, and I can do that easily. Another way I've used Source Mirror is when I'm building different little widgets for channel point redemptions and things like that, that I can use that, manipulate like my gameplay scene and fit it in. StreamFX has so many more other things that you can use. There's a virtual green screen that you can use. There's also a denoising. I don't use the denoising, but it is there in case you want to try and clean up something that's a little more choppy. And there's also a auto framing where you can actually move around and the camera will then follow you a little bit better. But StreamFX just has a lot of different things built into it that you can play with and really develop a whole new way of just bringing presentation to whatever you're creating. The next one I have is Source Record. Now, Source Record is fantastic. I mean, I already run a replay buffer on OBS Studio that creates clips, but Source Record gives you the ability to then just capture a specific thing like your gameplay. If you wanted to just have your gameplay, you had an amazing moment, you just want to showcase that, take you out of the whole picture, you can do that. All you have to do is add that filter to the source and then set it up to where you can just record or even have a replay buffer enabled to where you just record the clip of it and you don't have to record the entire thing. One thing that is important to note when you're using Source Record is you are limited in your recording sessions if you use the NVENC encoder. Really will only allow 3 encoding sessions, and one of them is probably going to be your streaming already. So if you're streaming, there's 1 encoding session. If you're also recording that same stream, that would make 2. So when you're using NVENC, make sure that you're not trying to go over 3 different encoding sessions. ePostbox has an amazing video that really goes into detail on this. Alternatively, you can use like the X264 encoding, which would use your CPU to record and do that encoding process. The key thing that you're going to need to make sure you're looking at is your CPU, your RAM, and your GPU, like in your task manager, so that way you can see what's being used the most, because this is going to take up a lot of processing power because you are encoding multiple things simultaneously. Other than that, I will say that Source Record is by far one of my favorite things because it has allowed me to really just make my workflows efficient. Source Copy will actually help you back up your scenes, also share them across numerous different profiles, and it can apply to sources, filters, all sorts of things. So if you have something you need to move a whole bunch of filters and have the filter affect similar things, you can do that. Source Copy is just a great way to help you manage and maintain your stream setup without having to fully destroy it and then figure out how to re-put it back together, like I've done numerous times. But it's just one of those nice little features to have to keep things to where you don't have to have so many headaches. The next one I'm going to mention is Shader Filter, and Shader Filter provides you so many different unique visuals that you can apply to any source you want. And some of the ones that I use are the pixelate effect when I want to make everything look like it's from the Nintendo era. I also use the VHS effect combined with a LUT to where I can make it look like a retro TV look and making it throwback in time to where, you know, picture may not have been the best. I've also used the spotlight effect, but not for what it was used for. The spotlight I actually have used to make a ghosting effect. But the spotlight actually just gives you a nice way of just having spotlights dance across the screen and just give you something extra to work with. Another one I use, and I use it a lot for like trying it when I try to hype up things in small, stupid ways. I use the simple gradient as a way to just give that RGB effect that, you know, all of us love to use in almost all of our peripherals. But this gradient effect you can use to just give that color and that rotating feel of just, you know, hey, it's a dance party type thing. I've actually combined it with a completely different plugin called Recursion Effect that I've made this like little rave thing that I do to Strong Bad's rave from, if you guys remember, homestarrunner.com. Yeah, I'm old. It's okay. But there's so many different plugins you can use. That's what's so amazing. This is just what I love to use. These are my most commonly used plugins that I put into my streams. There are so many more you can use, and you can make these happen with hotkeys, triggers. You can make these happen with something like StreamerBot, mix it up. There are so many ways you can trigger it and have these effects happen. And combining them together can yield some just absolutely amazing results. Play around, create something, because I guarantee you it's just gonna give you that extra little something. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this was giving you some kind of information. If you like what you saw, hit that subscribe button. Also, give a like. That helps get this out to other people who may need this information. But either way, thank you for watching, and feel free to leave any feedback you can. If you have questions, leave them. I will answer them as soon as I can. I am here to try and give you guys as much information as I possibly can, because that's the kind of guy I am. So with that, hey, I will check you out on the next video. With that, have a good one. I'll catch you later.